to Memphis Light Gas and Water's Power Up Memphis. I'm your host, Gail Jones Carson, the Vice President of Community and External Affairs. The aim of Power Up Memphis is to take you, our customer, on an inside tour of Memphis Light Gas and Water to share our programs and our operations with you. And by doing so, we can all better understand how we function as your utility provider. Since the beginning of last year, Memphis, Shelby County, and the nation and countries around the world have been hit in a horrific way with the coronavirus. It has had a devastating financial impact on the world. This year, 2021, has rolled in with a major challenges. Memphis and Shelby County faced 3 back-to-back storms and a boil water advisory. We made it through it all. Today, my guest, MLGW President and CEO, Jarl J.T. Young, will discuss those challenges and a few other challenges that we will be facing this year as we continue to pivot. Welcome, President Young, and thank you so very much for taking time to come onto the show and to talk with our customers about what's going on at MLGW. Could you please start with the state of MLGW right now?
Well, thank you, Gail, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. Certainly 2020, we thought, and was certainly a very challenging year. We all know what the impact of the pandemic was to our employees, but also within the community. Many of our customers adversely impacted. We know there have been scores of challenges, both health-wise and financially. And so we saw that last year, and our employees really rose to the occasion to make sure that we continue to deliver services in spite of the challenges that we saw last year, so that our customers could receive the value that they've expected. And yes, 2021 came in. We knew that, or we were feeling, like things were getting, 2021, what a challenge. We're ready for a new year. And then we, lo and behold, have the storm issues and the pandemic still going on. And so we've seen I call 2020 a year of disruption and opportunities, because we saw a lot of innovation that came from that. And then here we are in 21, where we had to deal with some weather conditions that I've been told that are fairly unprecedented. And those weather conditions created some challenges for our system, that in particular our water system, that was certainly unique. And kudos to our employees who stepped up and really worked long hours through the night. Also, kudos to our customers for their patience as they worked with us. And as we tried to make sure that we were able to get their service restored, water service in particular, as quickly as we could. The precautionary boil water advisory that you referenced, I believe, was the first time we've ever had that at MLGW. We worked closely with the state, with TDEC and Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservation. They were really, really good in helping us to make sure that we were on top of things, of all the testing that we did. We never found any bacterial issues, no contamination, so it was precautionary. But again, we know that it was a concern to our customers, and our folks worked really hard to get things back to normal, so that our customers could enjoy that service that they expected. And
okay, I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's been a really great challenge for us. We're just grateful that we've moved through that.
Yeah. So what I was about to ask is, so we went through 3 storms back to back, and then the water boil advisory. Say that was about a month-long time of events. What would you consider the most challenging for the company during that month of February, dealing with all these major issues?
Yeah, without a doubt, because of the criticality of water supply, I think that was our biggest challenge, was when we had, and there were days when the water experts, I was going around and all our different locations and trying to get out with our crews. But when I heard some of our, experienced people saw them scratch their head and, say things like, wow, this is new, haven't seen this before. That gave me I'm like, okay, well, we got some real challenges here, because you had the experts basically saying, knew that this was a challenge. But with that, Gail, what I saw was just this deliberate, fortitude to make sure that we moved through it. They would not rest until they got over that challenge. And so credit to our teams, our engineers, our crews that were out repairing water main breaks, all of our folks, the design, everybody that was involved, really working diligently to make sure our operations folks that were monitoring the systems, folks at our water pumping stations that were having to figure out, how to keep the reservoirs full when we were losing pressure and water going out. It just showed me how determined. It gave me a lot of insight. I already knew that we had great people, but going through that experience showed me just how great our folks are. And I will always feel like we've got some of the greatest folks in the world at MLGW that were able to pull us through something like that.
Okay, so the city council approved, rate increases for us to improve on our infrastructure. And that rate increase became effective the middle of last year, I think July. How much do you think our infrastructure played in some of the major challenges that we had with the water advisory?
I think we all knew that our water system, right, just beginning with the water pumping station and infrastructure there, we knew that we had some challenges. But my sense is that it was a combination of things, not so much. I mean, we have water main breaks in the cold winter time every year. We probably have somewhere between 300 and 400 main breaks a year. Mm-hmm. We experienced, I guess, around 160 or 170 of those just during that week of time, or 9 days or whatever it was, 2 weeks or so that we had in February. So we know that there were some additional challenges brought about by the weather. One of the things that we know the infrastructure improvement plan will help us do, and the funding that we receive from the rate increases, one of the things we know that's going to help us do is to get more wells. We know we have some wells at some of our pumping station area locations that are not producing as they should. We know the average life of a well. We've got a large percentage of our wells that are way beyond their average life, still trying to be productive, and that's a challenge. We know we have some apparatus at those pumping stations in addition to the wells that need to be upgraded to help with making sure we keep our reservoir levels where they need to be and continue to pump water. So we think that the council action, the board and council action will certainly help us over the next 3 to 4 years as we continue to make these improvements to comply with what we've planned for. And but I will tell anybody that there are weather conditions that just can't be overcome sometimes, and we saw that a combination of old equipment and harsh weather sort of wreaked havoc in our area.
Okay, so as we move forward with our infrastructure, what are going to be some of the first infrastructure improvements we're going to be making for our customers?
Well, it's all three areas. It's electric, gas, and water. And just to recap, just a high level, because I won't get into all of the details, but I mentioned on the water side, since we're talking about water, certainly some new wells. We've got several of those planned for the next few years, and upgrading some of the existing wells that we have. Also, some of the equipment at those pumping stations, whether it's pump motors or panels, control panels, and other apparatus that actually controls what happens as we get the water out and to the distribution system. So there's a number of things like that will be happening on the water system. On the electric side, right, some of the things we're looking at are what we call distribution automation, which is a system that will allow us to be able to more quickly restore electricity to customers when there are outages. And it will allow us to do it in many cases without having to necessarily take the time to send someone out, because the equipment on the lines can sense how to isolate and get customers back up quicker. So that's one area. We'll be close to doing a little bit more tree trimming, making sure that's we get back caught up on our cycle on tree trimming, and some other substation improvements with breakers and transformers and that kind of thing. So a number of things like that on the electric side. And then on the gas side, regulators and line taps and whatnot to make sure, and that's moving great. Those things on the gas side are moving really well. So in summary, those are several of the things that we've got planned, all of which customers will realize the benefit of as we move forward.
Okay, since you touched on gas last, let's move to the pipeline, the Plains Bahia pipeline that's being proposed to go through. Well, it's 49 miles of pipeline, 42 miles in Mississippi, I think, and then 7 miles are in Memphis. And there's been a great deal of pressure for MLGW to get involved with this matter. What is MLGW's role with this, and where are we with this?
Great question, Gail. One of the things I will tell you, we've had a lot of comments from customers and community members regarding the pipeline, opposing the pipeline. A couple of quick things that I will mention, and the concern, rightly so, is the aquifer over which the pipeline is proposed to go. And we just finished talking about water. That's our precious resource. We want nothing to adversely impact that. So we are in complete agreement with that, with anyone that has made that statement. One of the challenges that we have has been that this pipeline, it's my understanding, has been permitted. We are not involved, if you will, in the permitting process. That happens at the federal and maybe state levels, I assume. And one of the things that we're trying to make sure we do, because of the proposed routing right now, takes it sort of somewhat near, or even through areas where we have our wellhead protection plant or some of our well fields near one of our pumping station areas where we get water from. And we don't own all that land. We don't own all the property where it's projected to go. And so we've been engaging. We've been trying to stay engaged with the owners, with the Southern Environmental Law Center. We actually met with them. Some of my team met with them last week, and trying to make sure we understand the concerns, and also trying to make sure that if there's nothing we can do to prevent the pipeline, then that we make sure that the safety measures, all safety measures, are installed on that line to mitigate any potential activity that may happen that may be adverse. You got to remember, there are a lot of pipelines running throughout Shelby County. MLGW does not own the aquifer. The aquifer crosses several states. It's important for people to know that, and to realize that there are just numerous, I would assume, numerous pipelines already in existence. But we're still keeping our eyes on that. We'll be continuing to talk and update the community on this as we get more information.
Okay, so President Young, we have to take a break right now. But when we return, we will discuss the situation that we're dealing with TVA. That is a major challenge that MLGW will be facing. It is something that our customers are most concerned about. So we will discuss that when we return. Thank you so very much.
Great. Thank you.
Share the Pennies needs your change to make a change. You can help ease the burden of a neighbor in need of home weatherization repairs. Your small change is all it takes to make a big difference. You may choose to opt out anytime, but for less than $12 a year, why would you?
I'm in.
I'm in.
We're in.
For more info, visit our website or call 544-6549. All you have to do is care.
Welcome back to Power Up Memphis. I'm Gail Jones Carson, your host, and my guest is MLGW's President and CEO, Jay Tu Young. So, Mr. President, for the last couple of years, we've been dealing with our electric supplier, whether or not TVA is providing the best prices and the best reliability for our customers. Could you give us, for our viewers, a little background on where with the TVA matter and also where we are today?
Sure, Gail. Yes, you mentioned it. It's been going on for quite a while, this evaluation. We've been looking at it, and you may recall, our customers, viewers may recall, that we started a process in 2019 that culminated in the middle of last year called an integrated resource plan, where we actually looked at how should we get power if we were not with TVA, what would be the best way to get power to the MLGW service area. And that was a very thorough process, ended in the middle of the summer last year. After that, we provided a proposal, went out, to get bids, because the integrated resource plan summary of that, or the conclusion of that, it came up with some savings, potential savings of in the 10 to 15% range that could be achieved if we were to leave TVA. But they said to verify that, you probably need to go get some real pricing. So we put together bids for a consultant to go do that for us. Our board passed that. The city council did not. And so for about the last 6 months or so, the process has really just kind of been stalled. And so where we are today, Mayor Strickland engaged, as many folks know, and was trying to be helpful with the council to try to figure out what we need to do to move forward. And that's resulted in a reconsideration at this point. Our board has asked us to take that proposal that we received from the consultant known as GDS Associates and see if we could make some minor amendments and maybe present for consideration to the board. And then if they approve it, it would go back to the city council. Again, that proposal would be designed to go to the market to get prices on local generation, transmission to connect into the MISO market, as well as cost for power from the MISO market. And so we're in the process of doing that now. We're working now to meet that requirement. We have a special call board meeting on March 31st where we will present the board with a resolution to the effect that as they requested. The request, and you may know that just a little bit more of the history, I did bring about a recommendation to our board that was subsequently rejected, that was to put a pause on this, primarily because of some new things that had occurred since last fall. One of which is a filing that has been made with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, that has been made on behalf of 4 local power companies served by TVA that are wanting to utilize the transmission system that TVA has in order to get power from a third party. And currently the way TVA interprets the law is that that's not feasible, not legal. And so these local power companies have petitioned FERC in that regard. So that's something that occurred back in January, the results of which are still unknown and probably will be unknown for some time.
So, Mr. President, we don't have any idea how long it's going to take for FERC to rule on it. And so say, for example, FERC says TVA is right. They don't have to allow anyone to use their transmission lines. Then what?
Well, our assumption, as you remember, in the integrated resource plan, that was our assumption all along, was that we took the conservative approach that TVA would not allow us to, the term in the industry is wheel power through their transmission from a third party. So we assumed that, and that we would have to construct transmission to get to MISO without using TVA's transmission. Not that that's what's going to happen. We don't know. FERC may say, hey, TVA, you do have to do it, or it may go to Congress. We don't know. So it's got a lot of legal tentacles to it, I'm sure. So but we did take that conservative approach as we evaluated options for us in this regard. And so we don't know how long that's going to take. So, my thought was, look, and in the meantime, TVA, of course, has made a proposal, a couple of proposals to us to consider. And the other thing, of course, that happened was last month. We just talked about that when we talked about the water issue. We saw some things that happened in these marketplaces of power that were pretty unprecedented. Most significantly in the ERCOT market, or the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. That particular market, which is relatively unique, had some pretty significant issues with capacity shortages and prices that were pretty high. The MISO market saw some challenges, not nearly to the extent that Texas saw, but it brought to light the possibilities of what could happen in some of these marketplaces. MISO is not TVA. It was not designed for MLGW's load, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunities for us to achieve savings if we were to go to the MISO market. So our position now is to find a way to get to the real question, Gail, that we always have to keep in mind is, do we have enough information to give notice to TVA that we're leaving? And there's a 5-year notification, as you know, that we must give TVA before we leave, and therefore at least 5 years before we will see customers will realize savings if we go the route of leaving TVA. So all that said, we've got a lot on the table now, first with our board, with this resolution. If it passes our board next week, then it will go to City Council on April 6th. And if it passes City Council, then we will engage GDS to move forward with, which will probably be the better part of a year in terms of getting some finalities around prices and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. We're moving forward as the wishes of the board, in compliance with the wishes of the board, to make sure we do what's in the best interest of our customers.
Okay, so let me ask one question that I've received many questions about, and that is, would MISO or any other organization other than TVA be able to handle the load that is required for our customers in Memphis and Shelby County?
Well, let's be clear. One of the things that you may have heard, MISO came to the last Memphis City Council meeting last week, and their representative, Melissa Seymour, who we've met with many times. We actually went and visited with MISO and met with Melissa and others, but she's been here and spoken more than once. She made it really clear that through their evaluation, just as through the Integrated Resource Plan evaluation, that it would not be prudent for MLGW to try to get all of its power just from MISO alone. There are limitations on capacity. There are transmission challenges, but mostly, we don't want to be exposed to a marketplace that could have swings in availability and prices. So local generation is critical. And she pointed that out to the council last week. Local generation is critical if we were to leave TVA, because we need to have our own source of generation, not only to supplement the load that we have at MLGW, but as a hedge against any kind of conditions, much like we saw last month in the marketplaces, whether it's high prices or lack of availability. So we've got to be sure that, that's a given, that if we leave TVA, you got to remember, TVA has a plant here, the Allen plant, about an 1,100 megawatt power plant that sits in our backyard today, helps provide not just capacity, but voltage stability and whatnot. So that's a piece of what we've got to make sure that's incorporated in our estimation as we move forward.
So we don't generate our own energy, right?
No, we do not.
So how quickly would we be able to build something that would allow us to have our own generation, as well as being able to purchase power somewhere else?
So those are all the things that would have to occur within that 5-year window, Gail, that we talked about. We give notice theoretically to TVA on day one, and we've got 5 years from then to get transmission constructed, generation constructed, and all the things dealt with to happen physically, so that ready to switch over, we can switch over. And so that will be the order of things that we'd have to think about. So a lot's going on, by the way, in the marketplace right now. FERC has launched a number of investigations, Congress has as well, into what went on with the power markets last month. Who knows the outcome of all of that. Those are other things that need to be we need to pay attention to as we move forward, because it's my guess, history tells me that there will probably be some additional regulations in the markets that that might impact, cost and whatnot. So we'll see if we get to the point where we get actual pricing in the marketplace, what may be projected out there.
So I guess one of the questions also that's at the forefront is, if we decided that it's in the best interest of our customers to leave TVA, when does the clock start, the 5-year clock? start?
Once the pricing and contracting is all, dealt with and all of that's, finalized, and we're certain about the feasibility and the board has made its decision around this, yes, this makes sense. And I would suspect it would start after the board approved all the contracts and after the city council approved any contracts associated with it. It's my guess that that's maybe when the notice would be given. That's my speculation. I have no idea exactly that that's the case, but that would be what I would suggest, only because you don't want to give notice without having certainty of where you're headed. But be it known that once we do give notice, we're kind of on a track then that we'd have to accomplish. And so, but we'll see what happens. We're going to keep at it and see what happens here over the next few weeks.
As a customer of MLGW, could you please explain to me that if we are not done with everything at the end of 5 years, then what? Well,
there's a possibility, of course, that TVA will be making plans during that 5-year window to not serve MLGW. And there is certainly a possibility that we will not have power supply potentially, or we'd have to do something differently structured than we have today to try to get power here. So there's some risk, but we'd have to sort of be certain. That's why I say giving notice, we'd have to be certain when we give notice of what's ahead of us. Very important.
Okay, so President Young, I really greatly appreciate you coming on the show today and providing all of this information for our customers. But before we depart, is there any parting words that you would like to leave with our viewers before we leave?
Just saying thank you again for all the patience that our customers showed us last month, for your endurance, and thank you for the opportunity. It's a privilege to serve our customers. We are grateful for all our employees who have done such a marvelous job trying to make sure we continue to serve our customers in admirable ways, making their experiences what they should be. And when we make mistakes, we want to make sure we improve. We got a long way to go. We're still working to get better. We're just honored and privileged to be able to serve our customers. Thanks for the opportunity to be on today.
Okay, thank you so much. And I want to thank our viewers for being with us on Power Up Memphis. We look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you very much.
Connect with MLGW.
We can help.
Go to MLGW.com for bill payment, analysis, service transfers, outage updates, and more. Connect to us on Facebook to share comments and ask questions. On Twitter, you can give us a tweet. Connect to our blog for news and updates.
Watch how-to videos on YouTube.
Connect by downloading iPhone apps. Get text message reminders. Stay connected with MLGW.
We can help.
Helping those with less than you can make you happy too. Plus one makes me happy to help someone. Plus one doing what can be done to help. Plus one helping your neighbor can be fun.
Call 544-6549 or visit mlgw.com/+1.
Help someone.